Good day, people. This is Brother Laos coming at you with another video. I just want to talk a little bit about Israel and Iran. I want to give you my thoughts on what I see and tie it back to some scriptures that I have been studying for the last 2 months, coming out of Genesis 9, chapter 9, chapter 10, and Daniel, the 2nd chapter. So when you get a chance, I'm gonna point out a few verses out of there, but I want you at your leisure to go back and read the entire 9th and 10th chapter of Genesis, and read the entire 2nd chapter of Daniel. And I was thinking on the thought a few months ago, the iron and the clay. As we know, in the 2nd chapter of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, who himself was of the Shemitic people, because although Babylon was started by Nimrod, who was of Ham, the descendants of Shem inherited that area from Ham, and basically the Hamitic people, for the most part, area of occupation, if you want to use that word, was primarily in what we call Africa, but it started actually in the Fertile Crescent, the area called ancient Mesopotamia, which was also part of where the Garden of Eden was at. We know that he rose up by the Most High Yah to not just punish Israel for their sins of idolatry, Judah in particular, but also many other nations. Was the nation of Babylon rose up to punish. And it wasn't because Babylon was a good nation. They weren't. They were evil idolaters. But as Daniel clearly stated in the book of Daniel, that the Most High Yah will raise up the basis of men to rule over these different kingdoms, and therefore Nebuchadnezzar, a very evil and wicked man, until he came out of his 7 years of living like a beast, he had been an instrument in the hands of the Most High Yah. And so in this context, the Most High Yah gave this evil, wicked man, Nebuchadnezzar, a vision of the world empires beginning and end. We know that the first world empire was the empire, like I just stated, started by Nimrod, the Tower of Babel, which evolved into Babylon. And then we know in the vision that Nebuchadnezzar was given, which also was given to Daniel, in order for him to interpret it, the first world kingdom that the Most High Yah recognized was that of the head of gold of Babylon, which was Nebuchadnezzar. We know that after that followed the Medo-Persians, of which the Medes if you go back to the table of nations in Genesis 10, you will see that one of the sons of Japheth, his name is Medai. From Medai, the Medes came, which was the Medo-Persian Empire. The Persian part of that Medo-Persian Empire, the Persian part was actually the Elamites. The Elamites now were actually Shemitic people, which you can still find some of them in that area we call Mesopotamia, Iran. You can find some of them. They are dark people. I've actually seen documentaries on them, and they're kept out of. They're kind of out in the country area. They're not in the cities, but it's millions of them on top of some of the descendants of our people that went into captivity in Babylon. There are still some of our people that are mixed in over there also. But then we're going to continue on. The third kingdom after the Medo-Persian Empire was the Greeks, the Mesopotamians. Alexander the Great, we know he conquered the known world the quickest at that time when he did it. If you go back to that table of nations in Genesis 10, you will see one of the sons of Japheth is a man named Javan. From Javan comes the Greeks. But also from Javan comes the next part of the statue, the iron legs, the two iron legs, Rome. From Javan, you had the Greeks, but you also had the Romans, or Kittim. That's what in the Bible it calls Rome Kittim. So from Javan comes the Greeks and the Romans. But what do you notice the pattern? The pattern starts out with the Shemitic people, but after that, all of that after that is Japheth, through Medai, the Medes, but also Javan, which is the father of the Greeks and the Romans. So then we go to Genesis 9 and 27, where after the flood, the three sons of Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, we know that Noah gives the blessing on them, and because Japheth is the eldest, he is the oldest. I went back and I studied it because there was some question on who was the oldest, but the Bible clearly says that he was the elder. So Noah gives the blessing to his three sons, and we know that he tells Japheth, he said Japheth is going to be enlarged, meaning that he's going to start out with a small portion, but over time he is going to possess the tents of Shem, and he's also going to rule over the descendants of the Canaanites, whoever the word which are sons of Ham. But if you go back and look at that word enlarge in the Hebrew, it doesn't just mean to be able to take over, but it also means one can be deceived. So what it's sounding like to me especially when you study some of the pseudepigraphical books on what it says about how Noah proportioned the land out to the 3 sons. You see that it seems like Japheth didn't get the really good parts of the earth after, the flood and everything. It seems like he got the least desirable parts. He got the parts that were colder, not a lot of good seasonal weather for crops. And at the time, Europe, which is some of the areas that he inherited, was going through an ice age. We know that it was a mini ice age. In order for all that water that had been that was on the surface of the earth, it had to go somewhere. Some of it went back into the earth, but then a lot of it went into what we call the polar ice caps. How did the polar ice caps come? It was a freeze, and as you see, when things freeze, they retract. And so where the proportion of the land that Japheth got was closer to the northern pole, where it was cold, and that's why it was the least desirable. But for whatever reason, Japheth did not stay of the proportion that he had. He expanded or enlarged or was thrust into other people's areas of inhabitation, again because he didn't get a good portion. And we see after the Shemitic kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar was defeated by the Japhetic nation of Medo-Persia, that after that Japheth never gave up control of basically really the whole earth, if you really look at it. From the time that the Persians conquered Egypt, when at the battle of I think it's Palasan, it was 527 BC. They conquered Egypt. Cyrus the Great Son, Cambyses the third conquered the Pharaoh there. The Japhetic nations have held on to the grip of power over all other, or started their subjugation of the rest of the world. First with the silver of Persia, then with the brass or bronze of Greece, but then with the iron legs of Rome. And then finally, the time that we are living in right now, the iron mixed with clay, which is what I have been thinking about the last couple of months. The iron, which is the revised Roman Empire, which was comprised of not just the Italians, but all nations that were in that European theater, and parts of what we call Asia, because I do believe that a lot of the Orientals, Chinese, Japanese, all those, that they also are Japhetic people. But I believe that when you see the revised Roman Empire holding on, it's the steel toes with the clay mixed in. I believe, for me, that signifies that from the time that Cyrus the Great Son conquered Egypt, the Hamitic nations, You know that we know that Israel and the Assyrians and the Babylonians and all those Semitic nations had been subjugated by that time by who? Persians, Japhetic people. The next one that got the final blow was the Hamitic nation, Egypt, and after that, Japheth has held on to power ever since, primarily over who? The Hamitic and the Shemitic nations, of which the Israel is, and most of those nations are people of what color? The clay. It was just like, there it is, just right there in your face, the iron mixed with clay. You know, we know it says yes, mankind, but I'm saying when you look at the hue of the clay, what is it? It has color. We know that some of Japheth, not all, because we know that at one time all the brothers, descendants of Noah, were people of color. So it really kind of doesn't really deal with color until later on, but I believe by the vision having the clay in there, that Yah understands later on that mankind was going to separate themselves by that. So he put that in there, that clay, so that you will know this iron will have control. And you can look at it figuratively. The people of colors have been under the subjugation of the iron. The Japhetic nations, Rome, basically all the descendants of Japheth have had some kind of control over the clay. But what does it say? And this is where what I see happening now is being prophetic. You had, up until World War II, all of those Hamitic and Shemitic nations were under the control of the Japhetic nations through iron, through what? Technology. Iron represents the Iron Age. It represents the age of industrialization, of which they use those things against us. What did they put on our ancestors? They put us chains on our ankles, braces on our necks. They use weapons, guns, explosives, cannons to control those nations, and they have held them in check because iron is what? It's solid. But when you try to mix it with something that is soft like clay, eventually that clay is going to come apart. So up until World War II, they had a strong grip. Colonization, you know, after slavery came colonization, which was just as strong or maybe even stronger. But what did you see that started happening after World War II? You start seeing the clay, the nations of color, the peoples of color started what? They started coming apart, because he said in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, he said, even as iron mixed with clay will not stand together, they shall mix themselves with the seed of men, but it's not going to stay together. What was another thing that the Japhetic nations did when they went into other nations? What did Alexander the Great, all of them do? They rename capitals after themselves. They did a lot of interbreeding with the other nations to put in their seed. We know, scientists have already said, that people that were in what they call sub-Saharan Africa do not naturally have the Neanderthal gene in them. That was only introduced to us because of the iron, say mixing itself with the seed of men and putting that in us and creating the, some of these anomalies, and in some cases breeding out whole races of people, where they were whited out, like the people in the Tasmanians, and some of the people, the Aborigines of Australia. But it said eventually it would start coming. So out, you see that after World War II, what was the big push? I want to be free. I want to be set free. I want to be set free from colonization, from Africa to Asia to us as Hebrew people here in America, black people here in America, fighting for our freedom. You had the African nations, albeit it was a tentative independence they were giving, but many of them were quote unquote free from the control of Europe, the 10 toes, right? And then we as black Americans were given our civil rights, quote unquote, and were said that now that we could become part of the American dream, seemingly. But it's an ongoing fight, because it's not a thing that the iron wants to do, but it's inevitable that that which is not naturally mixed together is going to try to come apart. So right now, it's still a fight. It's still a fight going on to keep control. That's why you're seeing all the terrorism and different things that is being used around the world to try to keep the clay dependent on the iron, because the iron, which is the European nation, said we have the technology, we have all the weapons of war, we have the nuclear and hydrogen bombs that can destroy the world. So you can't totally get out of our grip. But people are trying, and this is I think this is what the awakening somewhat of our people is included in that, albeit I think they're trying to supersede that. The Japhetic nations, those of Magog, Gog, Torgama, if you go back to the Table of Nations, this is where the Ashkenazis and the Khazarian Jews, these are their descendants, right? So they're of Japheth also. Now, I'm not getting into the part about, the descendants of Esau blending in amongst the other nations. We know that is part of it, but I'm just gonna try to make it simple, and let's just stick with Japheth, because even if people are saying, well, the descendants of Japheth that was mixed in with Edom, however you want to cut it, the Japheth is still the clay. It is still the clay. I mean, it is still the iron holding the clay in. So we got to look at what is going on now between Iran and Israel. If looking at the Table of Nations in Genesis 10, they're cousins. What it's showing to me is the Most High Yah to weaken the clay. I mean, not weaken the clay, weaken the iron. He's having iron fight against iron. The Iranians, who are in an area that was given to the Shemitic people, but drove them out. Not all of them, but a lot of them, is now fighting against their cousins, the Ashkenaz and the descendants of Gomer, Targama, Gog. They're fighting against one another, and thereby making it what? Making it easier for the clay that they was holding in grip to get free. Now, how this transpires with the second Exodus, which a lot of people believe in, but then some say it's not. So I would just say this. We know that America is part of the Japhetic nations, or at least the Caucasian people that are here in America, of different, descendants of Ashkenaz. I'm sorry, of Japheth. They're here in this nation. But we, who were the clay, we still here in our land of captivity. And we know that the Bible says that in Nebuchadnezzar's vision that he had in Daniel 2, that the thing that's going to finally free this whole thing up is when the rock cut out without hands is going to hit the toes, and it's going to vaporize the toes. It's going to vaporize the whole statue of Nebuchadnezzar, and then that rock is going to grow into a big mountain. We do know that Revelations also said, "Come out from among her, my people, that ye be not partaker of her sins." So I'm seeing this destruction that's going on in these nations where Japheth has enlarged itself or deceived itself or been deceived into going, and now they're pretty much demolishing, trying to demolish one another. Excuse me. If you look what's going on with Tehran and Iran, where Trump is telling them they got to back up out of that city because I guess they're getting ready to drop some bunker busters, but then Iran is still bombarding Israel. And also you look at what's going on in Gaza with what Israel is doing there to the Palestinians, who are holdovers from the Ottoman Empire. They're Japheth too, Togarmah. If you go back to the old Ottoman Empire, when Britain defeated them, Palestine, as it was called, was part of the deal. But they let some of the Turks, the Ottoman Turks and stuff, which Egypt and some of them parts was part of the Ottoman Empire, which is again Japheth in places that he don't belong, took over or whatever. So there's many other places that Japheth took over that gotta be given back to the rightful people that it belongs to, but because of their iron grip. And they still have an iron grip, because if you don't know, Turkey is also Japhetic, Togarmah and all those. These nations, they gotta be weakened. Why? So the clay that's they've been holding in can get free. But it's gonna be some infighting amongst them. It's gonna be infighting for them to weaken one another. Now ultimately we know that the final blow to them is gonna be when they come to Armageddon to fight against Messiah, because they understand that they cannot continue to rule unless they have a confrontation with the Son of Yah, which they're gonna be more than willing, because of what? The iron, their technology. They believe that their technology and all these things. And in fact, what you can really look at is that the powers that be are being deceived again. They're being deceived by the devil to believe we're going to draw the Son of Yah into a fight here in Armageddon, when all along it's actually the Most High Yah that was drawing them into the battle. Though he was using Satan to do it, to deceive them to come into these different places where they don't belong and fighting to defend them. And then once the Most High Yah sent his son Yeshua, our king, back, and he destroys the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, then everything is going to be returned back to its rightful place. But you see a prelude of it happening now, with people trying to be free, black people, Hebrew people, Hamitic people in Africa and all these different places. wanting to not be part of Europe no more, not wanting to be part of their agreements no more, trying to set up the BRICS. Now, where does Russia come into this? Because Russia is Japhetic too. I guess that's Gog. They're part of Gog, Magog, and all these things. So what that's telling me is we as people of the clay, we got to be very, very mindful of all this as all this stuff transpires, that we don't look at it and say, oh, America evil, Russia good, or say Russia good, America evil. If it's of Japheth, it's got to come down. It's got to, because it's wherever it's at in places that it doesn't belong, it's gonna have to give up those spaces. And the only way they're gonna give up those spaces is when the Son of Yah comes. But there's preceding that, we're seeing the clay trying to break loose from the iron. And so as I see this Iran Israel war go on, you know, I'm saying to myself, you know, I think this is the hand of the Most High Yah. Of course, like I said, it's people that are dying, so we're not rejoicing over that. But just to see the stuff of the Bible coming to pass in your face is amazing. We're seeing the iron is being loosened. Its grip on the peoples of color is being loose. Now, what we have to be careful of also is the fact that if we quote unquote get free from them, are we being freed per se to go back to our idolatrous ways? Or are we gonna understand what got us under their control in the first place? What was it that the Most High, and in fact, if you really look at the Persians, when they actually came in, our ancestors that were under the thumb of the Babylonians, actually the Persians actually freed us from the Babylonian captivity and told us that we could go back. So I don't know how that transpires into what's going on with the present day Persians, Iranians. I don't know. I do know again that they are Japheth, and that they are in a place in Mesopotamia, in the Fertile Crescent. Them, the descendants of Ashkenaz and all those that are in Israel, and then the people of the House of Saud were actually holdovers from the Ottoman Empire, which is Turkey and all them. They're Japheth. None of them are supposed to be in that area. They're not. And that's why when you see Yahusha comes back, where's one of the places it says he's gonna go and destroy? He said Basra. He said he gonna dip his garments in the wine vat in Basra. He said he's gonna be his garments are gonna be stained with their blood. And if you look at, like I said, the all those areas, they're holding on to them with an iron grip. And so as we see them dismantling each other's infrastructure and different things like that, although, like I said, it is sad to see that stuff with the Palestinian children and all that. They, like I said, also are not in an area that belongs to them. They're holdovers from the Ottoman Empire, and as they destroy, which I think we're gonna start seeing, in my opinion, mass movements of people in and out of different areas. Now, this is where we as black people, as Hebrew people, got to be careful, because this is just my opinion. I know a lot of y'all that are in the Hebrew Israelite movement, you know, believe that a lot of the stuff that you doing, customs and different things you doing, is from the Most High. But I'm looking at the fact that some of the stuff that we're getting is not from us. I think some of this stuff is being given to us by the Ashkenazis. I really believe some of this stuff to ultimately lead us to take on their ways, because the other day I ran across this channel. There's a black man and his wife. I guess they live in Israel, but they've converted to the Judaism. He looks like he might be a rabbi or something, because he had the yarmulke on, and then he had the little curly cute things on the side. But he's a black guy, and his wife, she's black too, but she had the little head dress on that the Jewish women wear, but she had her hair laid down or whatever underneath it. And then he was saying, what do we do when we're coming under a bombardment or whatever? And it looks like he's bought into the Judaism. And I'm having a feeling that with all this stuff going on, in order to try to extend their time out, that they're gonna either finally admit, oh yeah, y'all the people, and this and that, and try to get some of us to preemptively come over there to Israel, just like some of us are trying to preemptively go over to Africa, thinking that Africa is Israel. Either way, going over there without the Most High being behind it, you taking a chance. I can see them, like I said, bringing some of us over there, and if things get so bad that America says, okay, we need to send an army over there to help Israel fight against the Iranians. And so all you people, black people here in America, that said you are the Hebrews, you are the Jews, and you wanna get in on some of the reparations and different things that you have been asking for. If you want to get in on those things, here's your chance. We'll pay for you to immigrate to Israel. We'll let you be part of that. We'll let you get the money. We'll let you get the land. We'll let you get all of that. But the basis on it is you men got to go fight in the Israeli army against the Iranians. And if you do that, we ain't gonna have nothing else to say about y'all not being the people. We'll let y'all get full rights and benefits of being a Jew, a Hebrew, whatever. I could see a lot of our people taking the bite, and here's why. I'm telling you, one of the things I'm getting ready to end this video. One of the key things in all of this, dealing with all the nations, not just the Japhetic nations, is the fact that the head of gold was Babylon, which was Nebuchadnezzar. And what did Daniel say? He said that there would never be a kingdom greater than Babylon, because it is the head of gold. But what came out of Babylon? Mystery Babylon, not just not just the nation, but also the religion of Babylon, which is throughout all the nations, right? It's throughout all the nations. And how is it throughout all the nations? It's through Freemasonry, because Freemason lodges are in every nation in the world. And because some of the stuff that we understand in the Hebrew Israelite awakening was hidden within Freemasons. They knew these different things, but their key thing was we want to always point back to Babylon being the first time after the flood that mankind rebelled against the Most High Yah and started to try to build his own. And this is going to be the overriding theme I think the ones that keep the crypt keepers, if you would use that word, are the Ashkenazis that perfected it into this thing of the deception to be able to fool people into making them the chosen people. But that through Freemasonry, they told other people, yeah, we know this, but overall, we don't ultimately want to worship that God. We want to worship the God Satan that gave us the knowledge to rebel against Yah. But we'll pretend that we are the people and that we want to quote unquote worship God. But then when you look at the characteristics of what Satan does, he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. They are experts at it. Japhetic nations are expert in what they have done through Freemasonry and other things, and through the enslavement and colonization of different people, has also put that imprint on those other nations also. Not that those nations wasn't doing that. They were. But I'm saying no one has perfected it ever like Japheth. No one has perfected it. No one, but Japheth, remember, he goes into places that don't belong to him, and he takes their land, people's land, language, identity, all these different things. So he has that serpent-like quality that you can't deal with unless you do it through power of the Most High Yah. Just like Yeshua told Pilate, who was what? A Roman. He said, you don't have no power except that which my Father gives you, right? And so it pleases the Father now to cause them, their grip to be loosened on the peoples of clay, the clay. Why? Just for them to know who they are? No, not just that. That is an important part for us as Hebrew people, as black people, and for the rest of the world to know we are that, but also for us to now say that mission that he had given us as the people of the book before we rejected Yeshua. Now we are to magnify that, not just in our knowledge of the fact that who we are and scriptures and all this, but to act it out, to live it out. To live it out for all the nations that want to receive and live in Yeshua the right way, whatever nation they may be, of Japheth or Ham or Shem, to live it. Because when Japheth, as I showed you in some of my past lessons, that every brother, Ham, Shem, and Japheth was given an opportunity to rule over the earth, to prove that they could lead the people in servitude to Yah, and that all of them have failed. But Japheth was given, even though he was the eldest, he was given the last opportunity as the brother, and this is his time. That's why Yeshua said, Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, into the times of the Gentiles comes to an end. The time of the Gentiles is coming to an end, but it's not at an end yet. Their end is what the iron and the clay losing, the iron losing its grip on the clay. We're into that. We're in that right now. That is the awakening. That's why things are being loosened. Stuff that had been loosened, knowledge and different things. Yeshua said that. He said that which will be hidden shall be revealed. That's why you're seeing all the revelations of all this wickedness and all these different things. But what's going to end up happening is, once the loosening is done, what people are going to find out, that even even with Japheth's grip being loosened, that mankind overall, I'm saying overall, mankind is still gonna want to gravitate back to evil, back to rebellion of against the Most High Yah, which is what goes back to what Babylon, the head of gold, the rebellion against Yah by building the Tower of Babel. And that's another reason why you see the Japhetic nations, they're going to try to pull people into that, and part of that pulling in at the end, I think, to try to rebel against Yeshua is going to be, why do we want to keep serving a Yah and his son that keeps allowing this stuff to happen, thereby deceiving you to believe that he has caused all this turmoil and all these things, but it's not the God, as they use the word in heaven. It's the little God here, using deception, using Japheth, using the other nations, but in particular using Japheth to deceive the whole world. And that's why I say we need to be cautious as black people, as Hebrew people, and all other peoples of other nations too, with all this stuff that's going on, because I truly believe a lot of things that we are being told about how the end times is going to be, some of the stuff is going to change up so quick, how things are happening. I personally, and I mean it this time, I'm getting ready to cut this video short. I believe that the four horsemen of the apocalypse have been riding. I don't think they just started. That's just my belief. I'm talking about after Yeshua ascended. I'm talking about, because you see too many things that was happening in the first couple of 100 years after Yeshua that had never been happening before. You see the deception of how the iron legs of Rome made Christianity, which was created by them, the world religion, and they went out and conquered using the cross in this sign Constantine said he would conquer. It's just been going out. I believe what it is there's going to be a last iteration of the deception, but the deception has been going on. The world has been being deceived, but I think it's going to be one last iteration where there's going to be what they say, a line of no return, where it's going to be battled out, and that's going to be Armageddon. But the diseases and the economic stuff that's going on, is a lot of nations now that have already gone through some of these things. And especially like if you go over to Africa and you like say, don't you know what we was going through with the Ebola? Don't you know what we was going through with the AIDS, where millions and millions of people was being killed? So then you're going to come along and say, well, the bowl judgments. What I believe is getting ready to happen now is some of the Japhetic nations that were, for whatever reason, using technology, were able to seemingly stay back the hand of the Most High Yah. That's why I said, the iron was what used to make steel, use injections of stuff to vaccinate and different things, supposedly to get rid of disease and stuff. I believe now the Japhetic nations, now and I think you can kind of see it when it started in World War I and World War II, where millions of them died. Millions, and that now their population is decreasing to the point, that Biden said what he said about 2040 whites will be in a minority here in America. It could be not a go out with a bang, but it just go out. We just don't know. So just be careful when people say this is definitely the way it's going to happen, because even like image that speak. For a long time, people get out of here. Sorry about that. Before television came, nobody could imagine that. So when the television came along, those people that study eschatology said, "This is it. This is it. The image that speaks. See, is on the TV is the image that speaks." But now we got AI and we got robotics coming, where they actually can, and maybe right now or maybe in the future, make human-like robots connected to AI with intelligence that will look just like a person, that will have all that knowledge. I would believe that people, because people are tied into the technology of the beast, iron, of Japheth, will actually follow that. They already got some churches in Europe that are being led by AI. Me and my wife watched it last year, and the AI, it was sitting on the table. It was the head of a robot, but the AI was speaking through it, and it was going over the scriptures and all of that. You see what I'm saying? So it changes. So we have to be very careful. But we know that we are living in the end of the end times. So, be prayerful. Be ready to move, when it's time to move, because, I believe things are going to happen quick. But I'm looking at the what's going to happen with America and Russia, because if Russia decide to help Iran, I know that America is definitely gonna help Israel if they decide that they want to go ahead and deliver the knockout blow to Iran. I don't know, but there was some news that said that Iran was seeking to do peace talks. I don't know, but that's just my thoughts on that. I hope you was able to get something out of it. If you could, please give this video a thumbs up. Could you leave a comment, and could you subscribe, and could you share, and just be prayerful for the clay. Just be prayerful for the nations that's trying to come out of the grip of Japheth, because there was a reason why y'all allowed some of these things to happen, but Yah's plan is going to come to fruition, just like he showed Daniel in the 2nd chapter of Daniel. Yahusha is going to rule the nations, and that's the ultimate thing, that if you're still alive when it happened. But until that time, we got to try to break away as much as we can, so that be blessed.